Good evening, everybody. This is Monday, October 7th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. Kearney Board of Aldermen meeting. Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunday, you've got a chance to take roll.
I've taken roll. Everyone is present except for Alderman Lehman, and you have a quorum.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to personal appearances this evening. We are going to provide an opportunity for department leaders to introduce new employees or special recognition. So we'll start with Captain Stewart.
Good evening. I'd like to start with Corporal Parton and K9 Havoc. As you all know, we got K9 Havoc this year. Jeff spent a lot of time in training with him, and he's coming along really good. Jeff went to Pennsylvania to get the dog, and then spent several months in Boone County training with the dog, and they're working pretty good together. He's already had some good hits for us. Jeff spent a lot of time away from his family and was not able to be here to be recognized with the other new corporals. So we'd like to recognize Jeff for being promoted to corporal and running one of the day shifts along with being the K9 officer. And as you can see, we think he's a pretty good boy.
Thank you, Corporal Parton. Congratulations on your promotion and your continued leadership and service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Appreciate you, sir.
Second officer I'd like to recommend is our new SRO, Cameron Phillip. Cameron's been with the department about 4 years. A little background is Cameron did grow up in Kearney, graduate from Kearney High School. He's always kind of wanted to go back and help with the kids in the SRO as a role. So he went, when we thought we were going to have a part-time SRO, he volunteered to go to the school. So we sent him to Jet City for a couple weeks, and he got his SRO certification. He came back, and then we had the full-time position, and he was interested and was chosen for that. He had the choice of being an SRO or being promoted to corporal, and he chose to stay as the SRO. It's that big. I mean, he has been really enthused about the program and has a lot of great ideas that we're proud of. I was just out by the high school and talked to a couple teachers, and they were telling me how good the kids are already relating to him. They're pretty excited about him.
Well, once a bulldog, always a bulldog, Officer Phillip. And I'm sure all those days that you wanted to get the heck out of that school, you would have probably never thought that you would be going back in every day again. But I appreciate your service as well, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shannon Smith is our new utility billing clerk, front desk, woman of all trades, basically. Answers more questions than anybody else in the city about all kinds of things. So she came to us from Cameron, has utility billing experience there. Also did some municipal court work there. So might draft her sometime for some of that.
And she's, I know we're introducing her tonight, but been here several months, a couple months.
Started in June.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So great. Well, glad you're still with us and thank you for your service. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any items of discussion or questions on the consent agenda from the board? Seeing none, if we can entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes as presented. We'll move on to ordinances this evening. The first item is motion approving bill number 39, 2024, presented by David Pavlich, our Community Development Director, who is with us this evening remote at a conference. but an ordinance approving a final plat of Noah's Landing, second plat, a subdivision in Kearney, Missouri, and accepting dedication of right-of-way and easements thereon. David, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate being able to attend the meeting tonight remotely. This final plat would add 39 additional single-family lots in the Noah's Landing subdivision. This would be phase 2 of a total of 3 phases. There's some offsite easements that were required that we received, and all other requirements of final plats have been addressed. Staff recommends approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended by unanimous 4-0 that the board approve the final plat.
Alderman Barger, as our planning and zoning liaison, do you have anything else to add to that report?
I don't.
Any questions from the board on the proposed ordinance?
Stormwater detention, big enough?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
David, that was Alderman King. He had a question regarding the,
Stormwater detention?
Yes, there's stormwater detention facility constructed as part of phase 1 that would handle phases 1, 2, and 3.
I was just wondering if it was big enough.
Yes, it is. Yep. Then there was a report submitted that identified that it was sized for all 3 phases, viewed by our engineer, and that was done as part of phase 1.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
all right, see no other questions. If we can read the proposed ordinance, first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving a final plat of Noah's Landing, second plat, a subdivision in Kearney, Missouri, and accepting dedication of right-of-way and easements thereon.
Motion to approve on first reading.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Second reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving a final plat of Noah's Landing, second plat, a subdivision in Kearney, Missouri, and accepting dedication of right-of-way and easements thereon.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Poll the board, please.
Alderman Holt,
Aye.
Alderman Barker,
Aye.
Alderman King.
Aye.
Votes unanimous and ordinance passes. Next item this evening is a motion approving bill number 40, 2024, presented by David Pavlich, our Community Development Director, an ordinance amending Chapter 205 Animal Regulations, Sections 205.010 through 205.070, related to animals running at large, and adding Section 205.215, prohibiting the feeding of certain animals. David?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do have a short PowerPoint presentation that Ryan will put up on your screen. Our security is so good that I was not able to address that through my connection. So the city's thankful for a recent donation of $10,000 to go towards TNR efforts. TNR stands for Trap, Neuter, and Release, or Return, which is a way to address stray and feral cats, reducing populations of stray and feral cats. The process involves trapping cats, taking them to a vet for neutering and or spaying, and then returning them back to where they came from. The benefits of a program are that it helps control cat populations, keeping them low. It's more humane than euthanasia or relocation, which was handled in the. Then, if those systems work, then we probably wouldn't see TNR programs as another way to address populations. And then it can also reduce nuisance behavior, such as yowling or fighting among cats. So staff had made contact with resources available in our area. We would like to work with Northland Animal Welfare Society, or NAWS. They are a low-cost spay and neuter provider in the Northland. We've contacted the local vets, and the price that they would need to charge is quite a bit higher than what NAWS is able to charge. NAWS is a 501c3 organization, and they've received donations from people and are able to offer services at a very low cost, approximately $35 for each neuter. And they spay neuter, do vaccination, and then, return. There's an option to rent traps, so they can provide traps that help people get cats, send them to NAWS, and then they're returned. They are a service provider for the cities of Gladstone, Claycomo, North Kansas City, and Parkville. So they have a lot of experience with municipalities in the area, and we look forward to working with them in the future. Now, if you looked at our code today and did a word search for cat, you probably would find 0 or 1 result in our municipal code. So we do need to make some code changes to add cats into our ordinance. And so before you in your packet is a proposed ordinance that makes a few code changes, including prohibiting, actually adding a definition of cat. So a cat would be either a male or female cat over the age of 4 months, similar to how we define dogs. Would prohibit running at large for dogs and cats. Cats outdoors would be required to be spayed or neutered. So if somebody lets their cat go outside in the evenings, they need to make sure that cat is spayed or neutered. It requires rabies vaccinations for cats. We already do require that for dogs, but since cat is not in our current ordinance, we need to add vaccinations as a requirement. And then it would also prohibit the feeding of feral, stray, and or wild animals in such a manner that you create a nuisance. Not saying people can't feed wild animals or a stray cat in the neighborhood, but you want to do it in such a way that you don't create a nuisance in the neighborhood. Staff would recommend approval of this ordinance. We do need to pass an ordinance so that we can find and address cats in some manner to assist us with our TNR program. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to try and answer them for you.
Thank you, David. This is Mayor Pogue. I received some feedback from a resident, and I passed that on to the city administrator and the board members individually, specifically with some questions of concern on a few of the updates to the proposed ordinance. If I could ask a few of those questions, David, specifically, sorry, if I can get on Exhibit A, under sections running at large, Option 2 says every dog when on any street, alley, park, school ground, or public place in the city which is not attached to a leash no greater than 6 feet in length, the other end of which is not securely held by a person over the age of 18 years old. To me, that reads that our ordinance would be against the law for my 14-year-old son to walk one of our 3 dogs.
Yeah, and I think you're looking at the definition of running at large, right? So yeah, I can understand that. We could propose some different language, and maybe we add or with authorization from a person over 18. I think the purpose of requiring something like that is if something were to happen, it's the responsibility of that adult in the family that owns that dog to try and address whatever issue might come up. And if it's a child, like let's say a ticket needed to be written, it would need to go to the parent and not the child. So
Sure.
I can see where, a small dog is easily held by a young child, and it totally makes sense to maybe expand that with or authorization from an adult or a person over 18.
The next item was, this is Section 205 Animal Regulations, 205-215. The part that says no person shall create a nuisance by feeding or in any manner providing food or other attractant to any feral, stray, or wild animal, or leave, store, or create nuisance by maintaining any food or other attractant in any manner, area, or location accessible to any feral, stray, or wild animals within the corporate limits of the city. They took that where your ordinance now says I can't feed squirrels, I can't feed deer, I can't, do any of that either. So I'd like to know your thoughts on that and that language as well.
Yeah, the important language to remember is at the very beginning where it says you shall not create a nuisance by doing that. So As long as how you
Oh,
feed
Dave,
an
what
animal.
is considered a
Yeah, go ahead.
nuisance? What's
I'm sorry.
considered a nuisance?
It would be complaint driven. That's how we would interpret that.
Or broad.
So if we've received complaints from neighbors that somebody was feeding a group of whatever animal, raccoons, let's say raccoons or something like that, and they were trying to get into people's houses or digging up their gardens or landscaping or, harassing their pet.
So what if one neighbor was feeding, let's say cats? They were feeding one cat, but the neighbor didn't like it. Is that still a nuisance?
They would need to file a complaint.
That would make it a nuisance,
So it'd be a, yeah.
and that's ridiculous.
The cat would have to be doing something like spray, let's say it's a male cat that's spraying all over the
No, he
person's.
said a nuisance is a complaint driven. So the neighbor calls and says, this person's feeding one stray cat, then that's a nuisance.
Only if the cat is being a nuisance. And I don't know.
He said complaint driven.
David, I don't remember if you put a definition of nuisance in there. Do you remember?
I didn't add one to this section. Let's see. There's not a
There-
definition of a nuisance.
I think it talks about in here, I read it a couple of times, that it talked about,
Yeah, I'm looking for that. I can't see
I
it.
believe it's in, under 205.035B, and it talks about, not permitting such cat to run at large, and then for the purpose of this article, cats which cause injury to person or damage to property shall be deemed not under control.
But that doesn't describe a nuisance.
I agree. That's what I had read though, and was thinking about.
Does anybody else on the board have any questions on the proposed ordinance?
There was I'm trying to find where it's at now because I can't find it, but it's talking about animals, if it bites another animal or something that we're in trouble with, sometimes dogs have a tendency of catching rabbits and squirrels and different stuff like that. Does that make it a dangerous dog because it's, I can understand attacking somebody else's dog or something, but
Yeah, so that was the third item that the resident brought up to me as well, that I shared with the board, is that's on a separate ordinance, but all involved in the same,
same thing.
similar tonight, is 205110, every animal that has bitten any person or persons or another animal, to me, they were saying that, if their dog would attack a squirrel running through the yard or something, that they would have to report that. They would, to the city, the way our ordinance is written, that they would have to quarantine their animal. Look, I think I know the intentions of this ordinance, and I don't think it's to overstep, be big brothers and try to tell everybody what they can and can't do with their animals. I think that we need another shot, another opportunity at the ordinance. The unfortunate part of that is we have good stuff here that's going to be delayed, but it would be my recommendation to the board that
We still passed it to you though.
it's all in the same ordinance. I mean,
So maybe can we separate it out?
we could separate it out. Well, yeah, we just have to read the whole thing, but that's okay if that's the desire of the board. We can either postpone the ordinance entirety until we get some clarification and language modifications and some of those items that we mentioned tonight, or we can look at, I guess, Mr. City Attorney, how would that work? Could we look at approving some of it as is and then, I guess if you could provide some guidance, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of the board. What the requirement is in Missouri is that you have to have your ordinances on file where the public can see them prior to consideration by the alderman. Typically, we do that through putting it in a packet that goes out. For you to make a massive change, which this sounds like this would be some pretty wholesale changes to your ordinance, I think the mayor is correct to the extent that if you made those changes, you would need to read the ordinance in its entirety 2 times to pass it. It's not, it really would be cleaner in this circumstance if you have some concerns that were raised. They've come to your attention at this point. If you've got concerns about that, direct staff to take the ordinance back, do a couple of revisions in it, make sure that, we've got good input as far as what to change and then.
So leave it
make those
intact,
changes.
don't separate, is what you're saying?
Correct. That's my recommendation. You can do it, but it makes it much more, it's actually a more difficult process than sending it back.
Thank you. I appreciate that point of clarification and guidance. So, I believe that it's not staff's intention here to not tell my son or any other kid in the community they can't walk their dog, but I do when you read it, it does read that way. So all of our officers, our staff have discretion. But I do think those items that I mentioned, nobody under the age of 18 able to walk a dog. A dog is considered running at large if it's running free on its own property, unleashed. And then the other item, clarification on feeding or providing food. I understand why, that's where the TNR part of it comes in. I think that really protects us there. But maybe adding some verbiage that would solidify that we're not trying to tell you that you can't feed your birds or squirrels or deer. And then last is we had an animal attack another animal, and that's why the staff is proposing the or other animal on this ordinance. So our previous ordinance just said we could detain a dog and quarantine it for observation if it is human only. Well, we're looking to increase ordinance to attack other animals, so that's where that is coming in. But I do think maybe some clarification there would be positive as well. Does anybody else on the board have any recommendations on their proposed ordinances?
To Ashton's point, I think maybe we might want some kind of definition of what a nuisance.
What a nuisance is?
Yeah.
Can you ask David if he got the clarification he needs?
David,
I'm here.
did you get the clarification and guidance you needed from the board?
Kind of. My thought on the nuisance is maybe we can add some language that includes causing a nuisance that has a direct impact caused to the complainant or whoever's complaining. For example, if my neighbor feeds squirrels and they have a bunch of squirrels in their yard, if the squirrel never comes into my yard, then that probably is not a nuisance to me. Or, it's not a nuisance necessarily. We can try and add some language.
Okay.
That makes
I think I've got
on the age of 18, I think I've got some language that we can update on that. I think it's a great comment, very constructive.
Okay.
And then Mayor, on the last part about the dogs that bite other animals, that's actually item 4C on the agenda. So I don't know if we want to wait and go to 4C and then talk about that again.
What I would like to do is I would like the board to entertain a motion to postpone the consideration of bill number 40, 2024 and bill number 41, 2024 until a time that staff can revisit the recommendation of the board, and hopefully that will be at our next regular scheduled meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Bill number 40, 2024, and 41, 2024 are postponed till our next regular scheduled meeting. Move on to resolutions. Motion approving resolution 54, 2024, presented by Sheila Ernzen, our city administrator. A resolution approving a municipal residential solid waste service agreement between the city of Kearney, Missouri and Redgate Disposal. Sheila?
So the city's contract with the Republic Services is ending on December 31st. And because of that, we went ahead and issued a bid for solid waste and curbside recycling collection services. We had 4 contractors who submitted bids. Those 4 contractors were Republic, Waste Management of Kansas, GFL, and Redgate Disposal. And Redgate is the contractor who submitted the lowest and best bid. They were the only contractor that offered credit for recyclables. And they also kind of sweetened the deal by, in addition to the weekly curbside trash and recycling pickup, they will allow residents to call and schedule a free bulky item to be picked up every week at the curb. So it's not where you can just put it out there without letting somebody know that it's going to be there, but residents do have that opportunity, and that would be in addition to the annual spring and fall citywide cleanup days. Redgate will also provide solid waste and recycling collection services at city facilities, including at the recycling center. And they have a proven record in many smaller communities. I reached out to their references and they were glowing, and they all said that they were very satisfied with the service. One of them told me, like, not to worry at all, that just do it. And that we wouldn't have any customer service nightmares like we're having now. The proposed contract will allow Redgate to request a rate adjustment annually. The request must be supported by documentation that justifies the need for the rate adjustment, and in all instances, it will be subject to board approval. The contract does include penalties for missed pickups. And this would be a 3-year contract with the option for up to 2 additional 3-year renewals. Redgate is planning to pick up Monday through Thursday instead of picking up the entire city all at once. And they're planning on carts being distributed to residents in December to begin using the week of January 6th. So December 31st is actually a Monday this year. So Republic should be picking up that Monday, and then Redgate would be starting on January 6th. I'm happy to say that we have members of the Peterson family here. They all are co-owners. It's a family-owned company. We have Jacob, Teresa, and Terry, and they would be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Any questions from the board on the proposed resolution?
I'm sure you're gonna be better than what we have.
When will the new receptacles be delivered?
Ma'am, do I need to go up there?
Sure, you can.
We're planning on starting the delivery on December 9th. It'll take roughly 2 weeks for them to get them delivered. But yeah, it'll start on December 9th, so we got a little bit of extra time there in case any problems arise before, the January start date.
That's just curbside, you drop them off.
Yes, sir.
Are you gonna post I'm sure you will, but we need to post something to our constituents of what goes in recycle, what can't go in recycle, those kind of things, so that we make sure that, we're not putting stuff in the wrong.
Yeah,
wrong
no, I
containers.
get you. Yeah, I'll work with Sheila and we'll figure out what we're gonna do. We had done that before and we did Savannah, we'll get something like that. That'll make it easy for people to know.
Yeah,
what goes
most people
where.
know, but just wanna make sure it's safe.
Yeah.
So, thank you, sir. I don't have any questions for you. What's the proposed cost increase to residents for the proposed change?
Residents would see an increase of $2.67 a month, and that will start in December for January, for a single recycling and a single trash cart. If for a second cart, it would be an additional $4.36 more than people are paying now. And so it's $19.42 a month for trash and recycling, and then $6 a month for.
Is the city picking up Republic's cans, or Republic coming around picking up cans?
So once you guys approve a contract and we have a contract, I will reach out to Republic and let them know that you have approved a contract with another provider, and then we will start working out all of
Okay, so we
that.
don't know yet, okay.
No.
I really appreciate all staff's time and effort at the direction of the board to seek an alternate solution for our residents. I've said before, it's really sad, in my opinion, that the number one reason I get contacted by constituents is because their trash has not been picked up for weeks upon end. I was quite frankly nervous. I knew going out to bid a new service that the possibility and it was potential that would create a cost increase to our residents. But I am extremely thankful that Redgate came forward and provided what I feel is a really good opportunity for us to consider. The bulk item ability every month in itself, let alone, I don't know if you guys caught this or not, but they have what's the latch called?
A safety
yeah.
latch.
Yeah, so to keep, I don't know, tonight when I got home, my recycle bin the lid was flown open because it's been so windy. They have these smart latches on them that the latches move to open up the trash can when it's dumping. So that'll hopefully help with some litter and stuff anyway too. So appreciate you guys being here this evening and appreciate you putting forth the opportunity to work with you. Any questions from the board? Anything else you want to clarify? All right, if we could read if we could entertain a motion to approve Resolution 54, 2024, a resolution approving a municipal residential solid waste services agreement between the city of Kearney, Missouri and Redgate Disposal LLC.
Make a motion to approve.
And a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Thank you guys for being here.
Never got that myself.
You are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you have other things to do, now would be a good time to excuse yourself. All right.
Excited to work with you all.
Excited.
Let us know what you need.
We'll move on to items for review and presentation. First item is the K353 redevelopment plan and policy presented by Carolyn Yatsik, our Economic Development Director. Carolyn?
Good evening, Mayor and board members. I'm excited to present the proposed K353 redevelopment plan for your consideration. The boundary includes downtown and surrounding neighborhoods. It's a mix of developed commercial and residential properties and some vacant undeveloped properties. The proposed redevelopment plan is a proactive program intended to encourage reinvestment within the boundary. The boundary closely mirrors original Kearney, which is the heart of our community. Over the years, a number of structures have not been properly maintained and are showing signs of aging and deterioration. Taking a proactive stance will help ensure that future generations in Kearney will retain a connection to their heritage. Chapter 353 is an incentive allowed by Missouri law to encourage the redevelopment of blighted areas through the abatement of real property tax. Per state statute, there must be a finding of blight to utilize Chapter 353. The city entered into a contract with Development Initiatives to perform a blight analysis. The report does find the redevelopment area taken as a whole meets the statutory definition of a blighted area. And before I continue with the rest of my presentation, I would like to introduce Jim Potter. He is with Development Initiatives and has prepared a brief presentation of their findings.
Thank you, Carolyn. Mr. Mayor, members of the board, thank you. Jim Potter, Development Initiatives. 3965 West 83rd Street, Prairie Village, Kansas. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm going to keep my comments pretty brief in lieu of time here. We've worked on a number of these projects in the past, Riverside, Parkville, Cameron, North Kansas City, Casey Mo, Liberty, Belton, Independence. It seems like these municipal sponsored and governed plans are a lot better. They function a lot better compared to private side plans. So we'll just dive right into it. It's a pretty large plan area. It's about 215 acres, 317 parcels. Next, please. As Carolyn mentioned, it's a mix of vacant property, city-owned property, institutionally owned properties. We have some school district as well as some church properties. Next, please. Mix of zoning, anywhere from R1 all the way to commercial CBD. Next, please. And I think everybody's aware of the historic improvements here in the downtown. You know, original public improvements started in the late 50s, early 60s. It seems like those are somewhat antiquated and showing their age. I believe there was a street condition analysis that was done within the last couple of years. I think Stantec did that. They showed that street conditions range from poor to very poor. And so we noted that in our report. We also noted that curbs and sidewalks where present were limited and in fair to poor condition, to kind of depend on where they were. Street lighting was sufficient, but it seemed like it was concentrated on the major arterials and lacked sufficient coverage on some of the side streets. So, and then stormwater. It seems like much of the stormwater drainage is via surface channels to either side of the streets. So, next, please. We did look at crime data, 21 through 23, averaged about 22 per month. Most of these are, not, I don't want to say minor crimes, but they're not serious assaults or anything like that. So, a lot of traffic stops, a lot of suspicious vehicles, that type of thing. So, next, please. So, Carolyn alluded to the statutory definition. In the state of Missouri, we're governed by the revised statutes of Missouri. That definition of a blighted area is contained in section 99.805, subsection 1. It's a pretty lengthy definition. We'll just skip to the essence of it. Next slide, please. So this is effectively a two-part test. You have to find that the area as a whole is occasioned by any of these factors: insanitary or unsafe conditions, deterioration of site improvements, or the existence of conditions which endanger life or property by fire or other causes. Next, please. And those would lead to the second part of the test that requires that any of those factors or combination of those lead to any of these causations. Causation 1 retards the provision of housing accommodations. 2 constitutes an economic or social liability. Or 3 constitutes a menace to the public health, safety, or welfare. Next, please. So our analysis, we did note that the first 2 factors were present, and those led to the second 2 causations 2 and 3, as we reported in our analysis. Next, please. So we'll just go through these very briefly. Insanitary or unsafe conditions. We noted we were kind of careful when we did our analysis. We didn't want to point out specific properties and point our fingers at certain landowners. So we looked at things more generally. We noted that there were environmentally hazardous conditions present. That's mainly asbestos-containing materials, lead-based paint. Again, we go back to the crime issue. And we did note a number of code violations. I think that's on the next slide. So we looked, let's see, code violations in year 2023, average about 13 per month. You can see where they're scattered throughout the area. You know, a lot of these were just simple property, you know, trash, debris, illegal parking, weeds, what have you. So, next please. So these are just some representative images. Again, we're trying to stay general and not looking at particular property. Next please. That's some illegally dumped trash there. This is one of those instances, it's one of those sidewalks to nowhere. It seems like a lot of instances there's a, you know, a sidewalk improvement, but it just ends abruptly at the property line. So we noted that. This is a picture of those stormwater drainage on either side of the road. Now this has changed a little bit because I think there's a parking lot on the left side of that image now where they, it's a Baptist church is doing a parking lot there. So we'll move on to the next one. Just again, deteriorated site conditions. One more. And we'll just keep moving forward. So this runs to our second factor, deterioration of site improvements. Again, a lot of the building stock within downtown was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. We have deteriorated building facades. We have building envelope systems that are deteriorated, roofing systems. We have missing or inoperable heating, ventilation systems, electrical systems, and again, we have deteriorated or damaged sidewalks or surface parking. Next. So this is the Stan Tech analysis that looked at street conditions, and so we're looking downtown between poor and very poor. There's a good majority of that area. I think it's mid 50% of that area that graded either poor to very poor. Next slide. Again, this is lack of utilities. This is a property off Washington that lacks electrical meters, electrical service, as well as gas service. There's no gas meter there. Next. Again, this is another one of those sidewalks to nowhere. Now, we did note that where new improvements were constructed on sidewalks, we did have that tactile rumble strip for visually impaired people. That's a good thing. So we want to prohibit pedestrian mobility around downtown and throughout the community. So that's a good sign. This is deteriorated parking area. Next. And just some facade deterioration. Next. So part two, this goes to our causations. We can move forward. Next. And so this basically, the argument here is with the social or economic liability or the perception of a social or economic liability. And it kind of goes back to improvements, age, structure deterioration, goes back to crime, code violations, or environmental impacts of the structures or those properties. And we discussed those. So to summarize, we did find that two of the initial factors were present, and those led to those two causes. Next. So it is our opinion that under the state statute, the definition outlined in section 99.805, subsection 1, that the area taken as a whole does meet the state statutes, the qualifications for state statute, and we'd recommend that this area be declared blighted. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know that's pretty brief.
You mentioned some data that you received from the city specifically to crime and code violations. So for example, on page 33 of your report, is that total crime for all of the city of Kearney, or is that specifically just proposed blighted area?
Just for this area.
Okay.
And
I
I'm
assume
not sure.
the same for code violations?
Pardon me?
Same for code violations?
Correct.
Okay.
I think we did have a map on crime. Can't recall.
I see the code violations. Here we go.
61.
But I would say overall, you guys have a great building stock. It's a really unique, historic downtown. It just needs a little bit of love and a little bit of incentive for property owners and future property owners and investors. So.
Any questions from the board for staff and or the consultant here?
All right, thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Jim. And for everybody, I just want to let everybody know that beginning on page 122 in the agenda packet is, you can find all of the documents that were referenced, including the complete blight analysis. I do have a brief presentation with an overview of the program. Go to the next slide, please. Chapter 353, tax abatement, is an incentive that's allowed by Missouri law to encourage the redevelopment of blighted areas through abatement of real property taxes, to remediate blight, stimulate investment, encourage preservation, and improve the value and appearance of neighborhoods. The purpose is to utilize an incentive for the redevelopment of original Kearney through the abatement of real property tax on the increase in value based on new improvements for a designated period of time. So why is this program being introduced? This slide provides a little bit of background. The 2016 comprehensive plan identified locations having the highest potential and need for redevelopment in the upcoming years. The downtown area was defined as the #1 priority redevelopment area in the city. It's Kearney's earliest commercial district and the symbolic heart of our community. An action item in the document itself was to seek tools and financing mechanisms to increase the amount of incentives available to attain community goals and objectives. Chapter 353 was specifically listed in the comp plan as a tool to adopt 8 years ago. More recently, in 2023, the Board of Aldermen held a priority setting session and utilized feedback received from the National Communities Survey and survey results from both department heads and elected officials. Priorities were identified. Housing. Staff was instructed to identify possible incentives to encourage mixed-use, high-density, multifamily development. Commercial and retail was another priority. Staff was instructed to identify incentives to encourage new commercial and retail businesses, including downtown. We were to explore overlay districts, expand the definition of downtown to include more streets and blocks, and to develop incentives to encourage retail, restaurants, entertainment, and multifamily downtown. So how does it work? We are approaching the program with sensitivity to the taxing jurisdictions. 100% tax abatement on real property is statutorily available for a period of up to 25 years. This is not the approach that Kearney is taking. Our program's term is much less, at 10 to 15 years. State statute provides the authority to abate 100% of real property tax. Again, this is not the approach that Kearney is taking. Tax abatement will be on new improvements only. Payments in lieu of tax will be made to ensure taxing jurisdictions maintain current revenues. The K353 redevelopment program plans a tiered approach based on level of investment. This slide shows the timeline for adoption of the program. The next step will be a public hearing, which is set for October 21st. Notifications have been mailed pursuant to state statute to all taxing jurisdictions, and an ordinance approving the redevelopment plan will be on the agenda for your consideration. So here's the boundary that I was talking about earlier. This slide shows how closely the K353 boundary mirrors the 1909 plat of the city of Kearney. And this slide has parcel demographics. So as Jim stated, and as the blight study states, there's 317 parcels within the boundary. 59 are commercial, 221 are residential, 33 are tax exempt, 2 are agricultural, and 2 are split 50-50 between commercial and residential. In the next slide here breaks down the residential demographics. There are 221 residential parcels. 104 of those are owner occupied, and these are estimated. 104 are owner occupied and 117 are renter occupied. Assessed valuation of the redevelopment area versus the rest of Kearney. This slide shows that between 2019 and 2023, the K353 area is lagging behind the rest of the city of Kearney as it relates to increase in assessed valuation for commercial, residential, agriculture, and in total. The intent is to eliminate blight and attract investment, which will ultimately increase property values. This will benefit property owners and all taxing jurisdictions. The goal is to increase investment within the K353 boundary to more closely mirror the investment that is occurring throughout the rest of the city. In the next slide, this is just some examples of what may qualify. Some exterior examples would be masonry work, chimney repair, foundation work, windows and door replacement, a new roof, major painting jobs, and major landscape site improvements. Some examples of interior improvements include painting, plumbing, insulation, electrical work, flooring, and HVAC. Okay, so this slide is a little bit busy and I'm going to try and explain it as simply as possible. And this is the explanation of tax abatement levels and the terms, which is the length of the tax abatement. So levels A1 and A2 are market stabilizing, and their investments ranging anywhere from $15,000 to $149,999, with an incentive amount and term of 100% tax abatement on new improvements only for 10 years. Level B is considered market stimulating, and those are investments ranging between $150,000 and $749,999, with an incentive amount and term of 100% tax abatement on new improvements for 12 years. So level B, since they're investing more money, 2 additional years of tax abatement. Level C is considered market shifting, and these are investments anywhere of $750,000 and above, with an incentive amount and term of 100% tax abatement on new improvements only for 15 years. And it's important to note that for all levels during the abatement period, pilot payments will be made and ensure taxing jurisdictions maintain their current levels of revenue. So these next few slides, Ryan, if you could just click through them pretty quick. These are pictures that are taken out of Jim's blight study. I just thought I'd add them here for a little bit of visual effect. Thank you, Ryan. So this slide shows demolition permits in the project area from 2019 to present. We are averaging 2 demolitions per year in the redevelopment area. Residential and commercial tax impact analysis. I have placed copies of 6 examples of tax impact analysis. Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to pull this up now. Hey, Ryan, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, you should be good now.
Oh, thank you so much, appreciate that. So there is an Excel workbook that has been created. It's lengthy, and I'll just go down very quickly to show you the tabs. I printed out all 6 of these for you so that you didn't have to look up here. So there's 3 that are residential, there's 3 that are commercial, and I'm just going to show you along the tab, along the bottom really quickly. So we have level A, level B for residential, level C, oops, why that popped up, level C for residential, and then A, B, and C again for commercial. So I don't want to bore everybody, so I thought I would maybe pick 1 from residential and 1 from commercial and walk through that, if that sounds like a plan. So let's just go mid-route. So let's concentrate on B, level B. So I'll pull up for everybody in the audience, level B, residential, which is 12 years at 100% tax abatement. And I'll go up here. So this is any address in the K353 boundary. This is an example. So there's no parcel number, there's no address, but let's just say there's a residence within the boundary and the market value is $295,000. And they estimated cost of improvements are in the B range, which would be $500,000 in investment. There's a lot of math in here but I'm just gonna kind of scroll down here to show you what that means. So, over the term of the abatement, years 1 through 12, because this is a level B, the total abatement would be, it's right down here. You can see it on this blue screen, and I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not an arrow. It's a big check mark. But it's $86,159, and this is on new improvements only. So then I just want to bring everybody's attention down here to section G. So this is after the abatement is over. This is section G, and in years 13 through 24, so the 12 years after, the additional tax benefit is right down here. It's $109,270, which is an increase in assessed valuation due to the project. So, and just as a reminder, pilot payments will ensure that taxing jurisdictions maintain their current revenues. I don't know if I pointed it out or not, but the rate of the ROI on this for the applicant would be 17.23%, 0.23%. Okay, so just like I did for residential, I'm going to scroll over here and I'm going to go to level B for commercial. And that is in your second packet, and it has a brown heading for the commercial projects. So a commercial building, this is again just an example. Let's see, did I put it up? We'll scroll back up to the top here. Okay, so any address within the K353 boundary that is a commercial building, we're just throwing out a value of $488,800. And for level B, let's say they make a $250,000 investment on their commercial building. That provides for a 35.13% ROI for the building owner. And over the term of the abatement, which is 12 years, I'll scroll over here. This one zoomed in a little bit. The abatement would be $87,820, again, on new improvements only. So scrolling down to this next section, this shows years 13 through 24 after the abatement is over. The additional tax benefit is $111,377, which is an increase in assessed valuation. And again, I'm going to reiterate one more time that pilot payments will be made to ensure that taxing jurisdictions maintain their current revenues. And I've got other examples, but I felt like that might not bore you all to tears by just sticking with one.
So I think you said it at least half a dozen times, but I do want to make sure that it's heard loud and clear that staff and myself did meet with representatives of the fire district and school district, and the proposed plan obviously could adversely affect their budget, but our proposed plan here that Carolyn and staff have worked so hard on does not create any decrease in tax revenue for our other taxing partners. It'll hold it steady for a period, and then obviously once it's over, the full assessment will take place. So thanks for making sure that was heard loud and clear rather. Does anybody have any questions from staff on the plan? Just like the previous item, right? I mean, this is truly just informational purposes only at this time, right?
Informational purposes at this time. There will be a public hearing on the 21st. Notices to all of the taxing jurisdictions did go out, so this will come back before you for your consideration on the 21st.
I could ask, how is this affected, this affect infill? So if we have empty lots, someone buys a lot and decides to build a, are they only paying then taxes on the land and all the new development would be tax-free for 10 to 12 or 15 years?
It would be abated, correct.
Okay.
We also have our Miss Bond attorney here, Miss Miller from Gilmore Bell, if anybody has any questions for legal counsel. All right, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for being here. Next item is the August monthly financial report presented by Stephanie Harris, our finance director.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Still running about on par with, we're 42%, as of August, we were 42% through our fiscal year, 5 months. So most accounts are well within range, and again, if they are outside of range, it's usually related to a timing expenditure, something that happens once a year or twice a year that's skewing the percentage to be a little bit off, but nothing concerning at this point. The only thing I did notice, because I've been working on September now, is that September had a lot of payments for people who didn't pay in August. So I think our sales tax will be up in September, but that's just because I looked at it today.
Any questions from the board on the monthly financial report? All right, thank you for that report.
Welcome.
Next is a utility update presented by Molly McCauley. I hope I said that correctly, Molly. Our utility billing clerk. Molly, you've got the floor.
Carrie, we're on YouTube right now, so. I look for a step stool in my office.
Can I sit here?
Can I? You won't be able to read my paper. Okay, so this is kind of a brief overview. Again, I just started in May, and so unfortunately, Shirley had retired before I started, so it was just kind of like, everybody's here to support you, nobody's here to train you. Luckily, Kuzi, our software department, is amazing and very, very responsive and has been a big help. But I wanted to kind of go over the things that I caught and what we're doing to try to make sure that they're not happening going forward. This is an evolving process, as again, I learn more about Kuzi. I actually leave for the Kuzi conference tomorrow, and I have a scheduled one-on-one, and I'm hoping to actually snag more than one-on-one because I have just pages that I want to talk to them about. So if you'll go to the next, thank you. So these are just some of the reports that we've started doing. The inactive with usage. So due to staffing, when somebody like closes, moves out of an account, we don't actually go out and turn off the water. We close the account and then reopen it. Luckily, as I've done this report, I thought there would be rampant inactive with usage. There was not. So the residents are doing what they're supposed to do. They're ending their services, they're signing for services. But this kind of finds some things, and a couple of things that I think were just human error, I'm hoping. When the bills are generated, looking for bills that have no charge, negative charges, I've seen, and then extraordinarily high bills. So obviously we see somebody like Club Car Wash, they're gonna be a very good water customer, so those are expected to have a high bill. But if you see somebody with a very high bill in a residential neighborhood, we wanna investigate. Things with no reads. Right now, we have an issue where a lot of our, like 25% of our reads are not importing. And so we're kind of having to do that by hand. We have an aggressive plan to fix that hopefully we fix this month. So that takes the human aspect and lets the technology do what the technology is supposed to do. And then exploring additional reports as we've become aware of new instances. So as we're doing these audits, and I'm finding things, I'm gonna say, all right, we're gonna start doing a report on that. We do a continuous consumption report daily that's looking for leaks. So somebody who doesn't know they have a leak, we want to tell them as soon as possible so they don't get slapped with a really high bill. So making sure we're reaching out to our residents that when we can see that, and again, that's done daily. And then meter non-communicate. So when the meter goes kaput and I'm not getting a read into my system, I have a report that I can say this meter has not communicated in 4 days, and that's when I send it out to field services. They have been our eyes in the field on so many of these things that I am not sure what I'm looking at. I need somebody to go see what's actually at the property, and they've been super responsive, super helpful. The field services groups that I've got have been great. All right, so the things that we have found as we've begun our audit, we have found some residents, so there's like a builder rate because when the service gets tapped, we open an account for them, but the house is nowhere near to be using water and sewer or whatever. So we do have a builder rate that we have them on, and we've noticed that once the homeowners took over that they're still on the builder rates. So we've got kind of two different reports that we can run, and we're trying to find those. Accounts that don't have trash listed on their accounts, there's been a few that I've kind of driven around to see if they have trash cans, an easy little audit. And then duplicate location numbers, that's, I try not to get too technical in my jargon, but just unnecessary entry of more, needs to be one location number per account, and a couple times we've had a couple duplicates. A big thing for me is PII information, which is personally identifiable information. So things like social security numbers, those cannot be in notes because those are not encrypted. All PII information needs to be encrypted. So getting all that stuff out of notes and making sure that all of our residents' information is secure. Again, a little technical, meter and remote numbers that don't match, we're looking for that. Customers that were inactive and that were not billing. We found a couple of messes, but I have found a resident with an irrigation meter that was not active and billing. And this has resulted in a back billing of over $3,000 because he's watered all summer and he has a big, beautiful lawn and he hasn't gotten billed all summer. So those are the things that we're gonna have to look at, and we will approach any issue like that with, grace and understanding, and we will do our best to work with the customers. But unfortunately, it is water that they consumed and did go through their meter, and we do need to touch on that. Next one. Oh, here I am, okay. So my last job, I worked for the City of Independence, and we had 55,000 meters. Here we have 4,000. So that kind of gives us a nice opportunity that really over time, I can easily touch on every single one of these meters. It's tedious and I have to be careful to give myself brain breaks so I don't start missing information, but we have a big old pack of accounts, and Shannon has been great, and I are going to try to touch on every account and just look for anomalies. And the things we're looking for are the things that we found, that the meter and the remote don't match. We want to make sure that all services are listed and billing, that usage is being recorded and billed, making sure those notes are clean and have relevant information only, that the rates are correct as far as, somebody who's commercial that needs to be residential, et cetera, and making sure it gets fixed after that. We're about 10% through those audits. And we're hoping, I'm giving us a goal by year end to touch on every single account to make sure everything is right where it needs to be. Hoping we can even exceed that, but year end is my goal. We have resumed shut off, and so we started disconnections for non-payment in August. This is something that the public is not used to. From my notes, I tried to find when they had ever done an actual disconnection for non-payment, and I can't figure out when the last time they did it. My notes say disconnections are very, very rare. So I think that my opinion is you can really hurt some people as far as you get them in a situation where if you don't kind of force your hand, they kind of get out of a hole they can't get out of. So we want to, so the first round, we made kind of some crazy arrangements and we gave them a really long timeline because they haven't had this for a while. We wanted to make sure that, you know, our goal is to not shut off anybody. Our goal is to get these people on payment arrangements and get them on a path to get caught up. Unfortunately, some of the accounts were quite, you know, it was hard for them to get caught up because they were never forced to. So what we're trying to do is get a schedule, a shut-off schedule and a payment arrangement policy that is published and people know. So nobody's getting blindsided. They know what to expect. And then we treat every resident the same. Nobody gets favors. Arrangements, I don't know if you want me to go into how we're gonna do arrangements, if that's too much detail, but we're trying to make sure that we don't let them get 60 and 90 days past due. You know, let's get those old balances caught up and then we can kind of make some arrangements on the newer past due balances. And that really, I feel, is a favor to them, because again, it doesn't put them into a hole they can't get out of.
Hey, Molly, can I just point of clarification, please? So there's an ordinance on how staff should handle the shut off and on. I just assume you guys are just simply following that ordinance that's already in place for you.
So the ordinance says if you're over 30 days past due that you are eligible for shut off. I've worked in utilities for a lot of years. I think you should only put them into disconnect status over 60 days past due, and then you can make arrangements on those 30-day past dues, the ones they are eligible for disconnect. But let's get those 60 days past due, and then we'll work on you on what the ordinance says you can be shut off for. Number one, just everybody falls on hard times, everybody has situations, and that's what we'll be making arrangements on, is what they're technically under the ordinance allowed to be shut off. So we are enforcing that if you break a payment arrangement, you will not be allowed to have arrangements for 6 months. That kind of gives us a backbone to say, you know, if you say you're going to pay and you pay, and you don't pay, there are consequences. And we let them know on every arrangement, on the phone or in writing, that that is the case. If it's broken, no arrangements for 6 months. So my plan is to do shut-offs on the third Thursday of the month. I went through the calendar and tried to find where it was the least. There's like 2 months where it's a little hairy because of holidays and things like that. But then people know, you know, nothing's getting blindsided, nobody's coming home to no water and has no idea why. And that also ensures that when we shut off on Thursdays, that we're open on Friday. We're not gonna shut off on Friday and I'll go home for the weekend. That gives them Thursday to come in, make arrangements, do what we can, make sure we can get them back on so nobody is off over the weekend. You know, I think on our last disconnection last month, all but 2 were turned on the same day. and I want to see everybody turn on the same day. So it's just kind of a little scare that we don't want to do, but sometimes have to. Right now, for the ordinance, there is a $25 reconnection fee, and then additional $25 if some of the guys from the water plant come out after hours. So, and those scheduler fees are up to you guys. Sorry, I'm a utilities nerd, not a public speaker.
I appreciate the report. I appreciate your efforts and staff's efforts on correcting some of those concerns. And, you mentioned everybody's human, everybody's gonna make a mistake from time to time, and circling back and catching those are important. I guess the only other message I have is, if you feel you need to, if you're, varying from, if you feel that ordinance is not what you feel is in best interest of our citizens and what you can enforce, feel free to let us know if you have any suggestions there.
Oh, I've got lots of pages written. I've been working on kind of a comprehensive policy that kind of covers everything. And it's something I've taken, I worked at Lee Summit, she worked at Belton, and Sheila worked at Belton and had some great stuff there. So we're trying to gather a couple of different good policies, and put them together. And then you guys can kind of cherry pick what you like and what you want. But yes, I've definitely been writing.
Anything else from the board? Okay, thank you so much. I have no mayor's communications this evening. We'll move on to the city administrator report.
Shelley was going to let you guys know something, and David was also going to let you guys know something.
So we held a public meeting on October 3rd for our Mac Porter Park Connector Shared Use Path project. We had about 11 members of the public show up and sign in to the meeting, and we had several staff and a couple aldermen come as well. We decided to continue that public meeting through October 25th online, so on the city's website. If you were not able to make the meeting, you could still go online and see the displays and provide comment. So that was my update.
Thank you. David?
Yes, on Saturday, October 26th, between 9 a.m. and noon, there will be an electronics recycling event held at City Hall parking lot. It's several weeks out, so we'll probably ask I'll probably ask to do another reminder at the next meeting as well. That's open to the public. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Move on to Alderman. I'm sorry. You're not done with your report.
Well, it's okay. It's just that the regular meeting will be Monday, October 21st. I'm sure you are all very aware of that, so.
Thank you. Alderman discussion. Alderman King?
I don't have anything.
Alderman Holt?
Hey, I want to remind everybody about Oktoberfest coming up. Oktoberfest is always a good time, and this year it's going to be a little bit different, and it's going to be down at Lions Club Park, so make sure let everybody know, and come and participate with us. It's this Saturday from noon to 5.
Alderman Barker?
I have a question for Shelley. I think last week I asked you about a trouble spot on Nation Road. I didn't know if you had had an opportunity to look at that yet.
Yeah, Donnie went out and looked at that, and the pipe is in good condition. It's just probably needs to be smoothed out because there's been some settlement in the road.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, that concludes Alderman discussion. We do have an executive session noticed up this evening, a closed session per RSMO 610021, subsection 3, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting of particular employees by a public governmental body when personal information about the employee is discussed or recorded, and 610021, subsection 13, individually identifiable personal records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment, and RSMO 610021, subsection 12, to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts. And a reminder, our meeting will be adjourned from there. So this does conclude the public open portion of our meeting. If we can consider a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Alderman Holt?
Aye.
Alderwoman Barger.
Aye.
Alderman King.
Aye.
Votes unanimous, yes?
Yes, I talked to Sheila and got her permission that at the end, if I had any questions or concerns, but you guys did a fantastic job of submitting the information, so a lot of the things that I did have questions or concerns on, are answered, and I thank you for that. I do want to clarify though, just a couple things. When you're talking about cats being at large, are you talking outside of their property? And are they required to wear tags of the rabies and the, on their body, the rabies and the city license? So if someone has a cat at home, which they call them indoor, outdoor, will they be required to stay within the property that they own? Or, and if not, from the reading of it, then are they required to wear a tag of rabies and city license?
What I'm gonna ask you to do, Ms. Dixon, is if you have any questions or concerns to come in and put that in writing and get with staff or come back. We've put a motion for the board to consider to go into executive session, and we formally are in the executive session, so it wouldn't be proper for us to answer any other questions at this time.
Okay, I was informed that at the end of the meeting, I could ask any questions that I wanted to before the board. So, there you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're in executive
It
session.
doesn't surprise me.
So nobody gets a chance to address the board once these meetings are finished? I just wanted to find out when questions can be asked, if they can't be asked after you're done discussing.
Yeah, so if you wanna, you can contact any of the elected officials or staff, at any time, but during the meeting, we're subject to,
Except during.
I did that.
excuse me,
I did that.
please don't interrupt the meeting. Right now, we have to follow sunshine laws and rules, and we don't have a public hearing or an opportunity for public comment on anything on the meeting this evening. So we have to follow our published agenda, and that's what we're doing here. So if you want to request something to be placed on the agenda, you can contact the city clerk in advance before the agenda is posted. But we're just following
And
the
that's
rules.
when we get to speak to ordinances. I mean, because I think ordinances get passed without us getting to say anything about it. That's what I think we all want to know. Well, I can't speak for everybody. I want to know.
You're correct.
How we can have our voice heard on whatever ordinances, because this is the first discussion of these ordinances, right? And you tabled the one I think a lot of us are interested in. Didn't table, you postponed it. But how do we ask questions about it if we can't ask questions while you're discussing it?
You can reach out to any of the elected officials at any time.
Just not during the meeting. But not during the meeting? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. For any time there's, yeah. Okay. This is crazy.
This is what I'm talking about, transparency. The transparency.
Executive session.
Mr. Mayor, have you formally adjourned the meeting?
Yes.